and welcome to Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about dementia change.
Alzheimer's Speaks wants to welcome you to a special edition of Dementia in the Arts, where you will hear from people living with a form of dementia as they showcase and share with us how art impacts their life. Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to Dementia in the Arts. We love interviewing people with dementia and seeing just all the amazing things that they're doing with art. And it allows us to explore the world a little bit different. We look at it from the possibilities and the abilities versus, what has maybe left or changed. The artwork that people do, the variety is incredible. I think you'll be really inspired. So I'll start out introducing myself. I'm Lori LeBay. My mom lived with dementia for 30 years, and that got me into this space. I had no intention of being here, but I created Alzheimer's Speaks to really come in and raise the voices of people living with dementia, as well as family members, because, back in the day, they weren't heard. They still aren't near enough, in my opinion. And I think it takes all of us at all levels, from the doctors and the researchers and the service providers and the families, and of course, the people living with dementia, to really make sustainable change. The only way we're going to understand it is to have open, honest conversations, and that's what we're going to explore today. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to have my co-host, Mary, introduce herself.
Good morning. I am Mary Creszeno, always happy to be a part of this program. I'm the author of The Planet Alzheimer's Guide, 8 Ways the Arts Can Transform the Life of Your Loved One and Your Own. It's a handbook for caregivers or anyone who wants to learn about this disease. I'm also, humbly I say, a recipient of the Maudes Awards for innovation in Alzheimer's care. And I also am a public speaker and give workshops in creative writing for self-care for caregivers.
Wonderful. And Wally is our guest today. So Wally, you want to give people a little background about yourself?
Sure, thanks. And thanks for having me on. I live in Northern California. I'm a father of 3 and a husband of 1. And I was doing really well at work, and suddenly I wasn't. Things that had been really easy became very, very difficult, particularly in the area of executive functioning and sometimes remembering people. So after going to the doctor several times and he becoming a little more and more concerned each time, I got diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, or Alzheimer's light, as I like to call it, or dementia light. And anyways, that was pretty disturbing, but a year later they said, no, we're pretty sure you have Alzheimer's. The doctor said to me, you have probably 4 years. We don't know for sure, but you probably have 4 years, 2 of which you'll be at home and 2 you'll be in an institution, and good luck. And so my wife and I left the doctor's office, which was about a 3-hour drive from where we lived, and we headed up the highway. The first thing my wife said to me after the office is, "What do you think about that?" And that's a big bite of a sandwich to take. And so I'm still mulling it over. But while I was thinking about that, I was lucky enough to have her say to me, "No matter what happens, I'm going to be with you, so don't worry about it," which was helpful at a level I can hardly explain. And basically, I went into a horrible funk. Thought about digging a hole and pulling a rock in over my head. But my wife, with her encouragement, we went to see a meeting at the Alzheimer's Association, and I met people who were talking somewhat openly about their disease, and they weren't hiding anyways, which is what I was doing. And through that, and through then becoming a member of Dementia Alliance International, which is a group of people with dementia that work with people with dementia, I learned that I'm going to have to live with what I got. So the best thing I can do is learn how to deal with the hand I've been dealt. And so what are the good things that I can do? How can I live the best life possible? How can I leave a legacy for my children on what to do in times of heartache and stress? How did dad deal with it? How did grandpa deal with it? So those were sort of the driving factors. And one of the things I started doing was returning back to doodling. I've always been a doodler. I used to get criticized a lot at work if I go to meetings because I draw, and I pointed out to them that Robert F. Kennedy drew during meetings, did beautiful drawings of ships and sloops and things like that. And Schwarzkopf, the general, whatever his name is, he's a doodler. There's a lot of people who doodle, and I think really well when I doodle. So one of the things doodling does, it helps keep my mind somewhat calmer and focused. So I find that if I'm at church and I doodle, I hear better than if I sit there and start daydreaming. I find that if I'm in times of stress, I like to sit down and doodle. And sometimes I don't doodle for a while. And sometimes I doodle constantly for days, and I can't really explain to why one or the other. But through my doodling, I decided, well, it'd be nice to color the doodlings. So I got some ink pens and started doing that. And I thought, I don't like that. And then I thought, well, maybe I can doodle with watercolors and figure that out. And so I took a couple small classes here in our little town of 5,000 people, took a couple of classes and learned to watercolor a little bit. So I do that, and I still like to draw. And I did do some clay work. So, where you throw. So I did some of that for a while, but I found that for me, it's too complicated because there's a lot to throw in clay. Not just, I liked forming things, but I didn't like the process of having to, dry it. And then you have to remember how long it's been dried out. And then you got to put then you got to fire it. And I think here we go. I think you fire it or something, then you get it back out, and then you got to put color on it. And, and with with ceramics, you put on a dark green and it comes out purple, and you put on gray and it comes out orange, and it's just like the colors are hard to figure out. But it was a lot of fun, but it was complicated, and there's nobody nearby. But I did a little bit of clay work for a while, and I really enjoyed that. So that's kind of where I'm at. I like to refinish furniture when I get a chance. I like to doodle and draw and paint. Sometimes I like to do it about things that are going in my heart, and sometimes it helps me to draw it out and help me sometimes explain it better than just using my words. But I find art has given me a path of peace, and it's meditative, and it's spiritual, and it's fun. So that's what I do.
Wonderful. I have a couple of questions before we look at some of your art. One, do you remember what age you were when you got diagnosed originally?
Well, I started having problems in my late 50s, and I got diagnosed, I think, this is hard, around 60, 61, and I had to leave work around 62 or 3 because I couldn't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. And the doctor who gave me this bad news had given me some wisdom earlier on. He says, if you get diagnosed, you can go on Social Security and get your pension and all that jazz, or you keep working, you make a really critical mistake. I was an insurance agent for 40-something years. I had thousands of customers, so a lot of paperwork and very complicated. And he said, if you leave now, you leave on your own with benefits. If you wait, like my other patient did last month, you make a big mistake and you get fired. There you go. You lose everything. So as much as I felt like I could continue to work for a while, I had to quit.
Okay. So how long have you been living with dementia then?
Well, diagnosed 10 years, mm-hmm. Realistically, probably 12 or 13. I think it creeps up on you. Mm-hmm. Mine's moving really slow. My dad died in a care home with dementia. I mean, he couldn't feed himself anymore. He couldn't, he didn't. I'd go and shave him, give him aftershave. He'd try to drink it out of his hand. It's like, geez, Pops, come on, But that's what he did. He lived to be about 88, and he actually had the same career I did at the end of his life, and he started having problems in his early 60s, and we noticed that he couldn't do like executive functioning. Now, his mother also died in her late 80s, early 90s from dementia, and she had started having problems in her 60s. So whatever I have, I think it's similar to what my dad and his sister and my grandmother and the rest of the people further back, they died from other things before they got old enough to have dementia. But I think that I'm on somewhat the same path, so I'll probably be okay to live independently as much as I do, which I'm married. I'm that independent. But I mean, I'll probably be where I'm really going to be in trouble probably in the next 6 to 8 years. I would say I probably got that much time, and then I'm going to be not able to really care for myself at any level, is what I see coming.
Okay.
But it's in God's hands. Who knows? We always talk in our groups about, you've seen one case of dementia, you've seen one case of dementia, and one of the heartaches that comes with the diagnosis is this seeming lack of concern or care from the care providers. Not the care providers, it's usually the people who diagnose you, the physicians and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, well, you got Alzheimer's, good luck. And out the door you go. And there's no brochures, there's no follow-up, there's no nothing. And when I went to the Alzheimer's group, the way they ran it normally was there was a group of people with dementia, and we're all in the earlier stages. Some people had frontal temporal or Lewy body or whatever, but they all had dementia, and the spouses or care providers, brothers, whatever, went in another room, and they kind of broke us up into groups to talk. And I know after I'd been there about 2 meetings, I said one day, the gal says, "Is there any questions?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "How many people in here thought about killing themselves when they were diagnosed?" Mm. She had this absolutely horrified look on her face, and I looked around the room and I said, I did. I gave it some really good thought. And slowly, out of the 12 people, 11 people went. So here's a disease you get diagnosed with, and the solution you come up with because of the lack of help is, I should kill myself. Mm-hmm. Now had I done that, some people would have thought maybe that was the right road to go. That's 10 years ago. That's 10 years of loving my wife and my grandchildren and my community and myself that I would have missed out on because of the perceptions that we have of what it means to have dementia. Because you're washed away by the medical community at all. I mean, there are people that deal with the guys you go and talk to, and they tell you to fold the piece of paper and put it on a table. I mean, they're concerned for you. But it's understandable, because a doctor gets a job saying, I want to cure people. And when you can't cure anybody, it's hard to see them. I'm sure it broke their hearts, and it's unbelievable. I mean, the guy that told me about my problem, we'd been somewhat friends for a long time, along with him being my doctor. So it was very difficult for them.
Well, I think that's one of the things that'll be good today is we're gonna show some of the positive things. Mm-hmm. You've been living, 10, 12 years. My mom lived 30 years. Mm-hmm. And I think people live that long when they're engaged, when they feel purposeful, when they have meaning, when they're joyful. And you had talked about how the art calms you down. So why don't we look at some of your art? What would you like to share with us first, Wally?
Well, I do all sorts of different things, but I sometimes, like when I'm in Zoom, because I go to a couple of Zoom things, I like to draw. So here's something I draw when I'm in Zoom. Now, I'm not going to tell you who's who. It's just fun to sit down and draw squares and draw characters inside the square. So that's one of the things I like to do when I'm looking, right? I did this one the other day. I found a picture of a woman, and I drew this, and it's called Joy. And you can see that's anything but.
Mhm.
I also been working on this. I'm hoping to put up a booth someday at local events. I live in a small town of 5,000 people, and I've been here 46 years. And there's no health care. I'm in Northern California, and there's no health care in regards to dementia and these kind of things anywhere around here. It's a 2 or 3 hour drive to go to a group or talk to somebody. There's nothing. And it's very common all over California. There just isn't anything out there. So I've been thinking about doing a booth at one of the local health fairs. And so I'm on this. This is my concept, is to have a booth, and it'll say every day is a choice. And I want to make a stand with signs that express often what we hear, like there's no hope, there's nothing, just go home and die, pull a rock over your head, get out of the way. And then I want to put up a sign like this that says, what does it say? Hug my friends, help where I can, find laughter and joy, build relationships, time to live and love. And the theme of this is every day is a choice. When I get up in the morning, I get to choose. Am I gonna follow the path of despair and destruction? Or am I gonna follow the path of love and faith and kindness? And so I'm trying to choose every day carefully which path I want to take. And so one of the things I do when it comes to my emotional status and stuff is to try to draw or color or paint the things that I'm feeling. And then it helps me sort of round it out or show it. And so I'm hoping to do something like that, because I hear it every now and then. People know the word's out in the community that I've got dementia. People come up and say, how you doing? You don't look like you got dementia. Well, yeah, it's kind of an invisible disease. And I appreciate that. But, don't ask me to balance your checkbook or to read a contract and sign it, because you'd be in big trouble. I talk well, but I don't do other things well at all or at all. So, I'm hoping to reach out in the community and start an organic kind of organization here. You got diagnosed, now what do you do? Well, here's a group of people that you can come and you'll find kinship with. C.S. Lewis one time, the fastest path to friendship is, oh, you too? I thought I was the only one. And I think, so often so many people feel alone and despair. And so I'm hoping to help that through getting a group together. Then maybe we could do some watercolors or paint or listen to music or tell dirty jokes or whatever anyone wants. Just to have some fun and hang out and have some laughs and find out that, gee, just because I got diagnosed doesn't mean I'm dead. So that's kind of the stuff I work. I got, I'll show you some more doodles. I like to use balloon heads. Here's a doodle I did one time. I was bored and I had to spend a day waiting for my wife for some doctor stuff. So I drew, it's hard to see, but I drew an S on a piece of paper. And then I drew houses. And then as you get closer, you can see that you got the Ferris and circus and trucks driving down the road and little vignettes of things happening. So
And that all started with an S. Wow.
I drew an S and said, now what can I make out of this? I'm going to draw a village. So, I've got I got airplanes flying and hot air balloons and a castle up here and barbecues, and a guy's seafood truck broke down on the side of the road, and just to kind of, like living in town.
Well, you're looking, I'm going to have Mary just make some comments, because she's our master artist on what you're seeing. I'm just fascinated by all of this, but you're the pro.
Yes, I am too. I just want to speak to that S concept. That's called an open-ended exercise that you gave yourself. And sometimes it's good to just start with something on the page and see what happens. It's not always successful if I'm working with a group of persons with dementia and if I say, okay, draw this vase. I mean, That, for various reasons, for some people, the observation or the motor skills, it may not work. But if I start with a page that has a circle on it and everyone gets that to start with, then the creativity individually is allowed to flow. So that S is a perfect example of that. It's something to hold on to when you start, because a blank page can be scary, but it allows you to open up your own individual creativity. And I love, and otherwise I love everything I'm seeing with the little tongue-in-cheek concepts, and just, it's a doodle, and a doodle can be amazing. I did it myself when I was a child on the side of my margins for all my homework. And my mother was like, "Why are you doing that? You're not supposed to be drawing." I'm like, "I don't know. I like it." And so what you said was, it helped me think. It's a way that I thought. So keep showing your work. I'm so interested to see more.
Here's a
Wow. There's so much to look at and take in.
Mhm. There's much to observe there. Quite interesting.
Yeah, that's my wife doing agility with her puppy.
Oh, we have that in our family too. That's a great sport. I think you said you did some watercolors too. Do you have any of those you can show?
Sure, I will show you in a minute. This is
Okay.
Reimagining Dementia. We did a musical thing on Reimagining Dementia, so I did people singing.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
So in watercolors, let me see what I got. I did most of my better work is either hanging on the wall in the house, or I gave it to my kids or give it to friends. I don't, you know, I've sent people stuff. I mean, I don't know, but they like it. I don't know. It doesn't do anything to me. But there's a watercolor I did of a landscape.
I love that.
And let's see. I like to do flowers. I do lots of flowers. I like different ideas with flowers, like ink and watercolor. So there's one I did.
Oh. And did you use pen also, like pen and ink? And that's nice.
So I did the watercolors, and then I drew in petals, and then I drew lines in here, sort of fill in the spaces. And see what else have I got? Here's one we did in our class. I did a turtle.
Mm-hmm.
And I like things, one of the things I have to learn is, when you're doing art, is when to stop. Sometimes it's hard to know when to stop, and then you end up ruining it. And the other thing is to quit trying to make it perfect, because it's in the imperfections of the different kinds of beauties.
Lori, what did you think of the last one with the purple? I see an image, but it could be my imagination.
Yeah,
Which one?
that was the turtle. Can you hold that
The purple one?
I think so.
Yes. No, oh, that's right. It's a turtle. I saw a profile of a skull.
Okay. In the very beginning, I did too on that, and then I saw the turtle.
And now I see the turtle. That's what's magical about art.
When you do watercolors, one of the things you do is sometimes you take in, you have I think it's called a palette, where you have, sometimes, you just take your brush and you touch it on a scratch piece of paper and think, I gotta see what color this looks like or whatever. So then one day I cut up some of my scratches and I made characters out of them.
Oh,
so the shapes were there. And then I thought, well, what can I make out of that shape? So then I cut those all out and put them there.
Oh, that's neat.
I got loads of more stuff, but I don't know I don't even know where to start. And then I did pottery for a while, which I really liked. But pottery for me was, with my dementia, it was too hard conceptually to understand all the steps. I kept struggling, and so I ended up having to, I just couldn't ever remember all the steps. But pottery is a lot of fun. Working with clay, it's visceral. You put your hands in it, it forms, it makes shapes, and even if you don't like the shape, you can just squash it and maybe add a little water or take a little water off the clay and reshape it into something else. So pottery, I really enjoyed the tactile part of it. I liked the feel and the use of my hands and shaping things. So I brought a couple of examples of pottery, and I only did it for a short time, but I liked it. So I did here's a bowl I did.
Oh, nice.
This
Nice
is a chip bowl.
glaze.
And I did a pot for my wife that we keep a plant in. So that plant's right now in the sink in this little bowl. So these are the sacrifices I made to share with you today.
Pottery is not an easy art form. I myself took it and I got through it and made a few things, but I couldn't handle the chemistry aspect of it. All those steps, I was very impatient about it. So I think it takes a certain kind of mind, whether one has a cognitive impairment or otherwise, to be able to do that. And I kind of was in the same place you are. I liked it, liked the clay, but it was too technical for me.
It's you got to let it dry. You got to do this, you got to do that, and it just got to be where it was more than I could stand. So I just thought, well, if I'm not having fun, then I'm not going to do it. And I was having fun, but I wasn't having as much fun as if I just sat down and doodled and drew. So, I that's kind of for that. Here's one of my favorite doodles. You'll have to figure out what you're looking at here yourselves. But there's a water faucet at the top, and it's leaking faces. I'll let somebody who's more Freudian figure out what that means, but that's what it is. Yeah. So
We're hanging around with a bunch of drips.
somebody needs to fix that because your bill's going to be hanging out with a bunch of drips. I like it. So that's kind of what I've done. I mean, I have probably several hundred things I've drawn or painted or done. I got a few things hanging on the wall in the house. I did a giraffe for my wife. She wanted a giraffe, and I got that hanging in the house somewhere. That's it.
I do have a question, if I may. What is the hardest thing about getting started in doing art? And what's the easiest thing for you? And everyone's different, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
I think the hardest thing, you believe it or not, sometimes is just carving out the time to be quiet and sit down with my art. I find it so easy to get caught up in watching newscasts about things I have no control over and that affect me emotionally, and to waste my time on just silly stuff sometimes. And then I think I should be doing art because it gives me peace. The news doesn't give me peace, So I think making a decision that you're going to do it, and to sit down and do it. And I think if I was going to tell somebody how to start, I would say, I want you to sit down and draw a perfect circle. That's hard to do. And then once you have a perfect circle, I want you to make it into a ball. You have to shade it. The light coming down. So it's bright on one side, dark on the other side, shade it. So make it look like a ball by just shading it. And then once you've got the ball, I want you to draw a shadow underneath the ball, because if the light's hitting the ball and it's bright and it's round, there's going to be a shadow on the other side, and there's going to be a little bit of light around the edge of the ball. And I mean, to find something like that and practice just simple shapes, squares, and how do I make a square into a box, and how do I make a box into a television set, and how do I, and then you can go online and look too, and there's things in there talking like if you want to draw faces, so you draw an oval, and then you're about 1/3 down is your eyeballs, and about 1/3 down is your mouth, and you squeeze a nose in there somewhere. And some people have lots of Craigs and wrinkles and bags. Some people are very smooth faced. Babies have small little mouths and great big eyes. So if you go into on the internet and you look at how to draw, there's so many people on YouTube and things giving you hints and ideas and stuff that's fun. And if you can't draw, collage. Get pictures, get some magazines from some friends. We're done with them, and make a collage of a garden and flowers, or make a collage of houses, or make a collage of faces. If you can't collage, there's art in cooking. Learn how to cook well and how to bake and how to decorate cookies. One of the things I love to do at Christmas is decorate cookies. And I get, we get the sugar cookie, whatever you call it. My wife makes, they have nothing on them, and then you make different colors and you decorate them and do stuff like that. Make ornaments for Christmas tree. When you were a little kid, you get the construction paper, I think it was called, with the different colors. And you cut it in strips. You make little rings with tape, and you make a string of rings and hang it on your Christmas tree as a decoration. You can paint little plates and hang it in your tree. If you stop and think, if you just go in, if you look around you, flower arranging, gardening is an art. There's art all around you. The beauty of nature, God's creation is art, like unbelievable art. The thing is to remember too is that it's not, trees aren't perfect. Nothing's straight in nature. So curves and crooked things and stuff, that's all okay. If you want to do nature, that one of the things you want to avoid is straight lines, unless you're drawing a boat or a dock or a house or something like that. So I think there's, some people are too hard on themselves, and somebody might not like it or somebody will laugh. Well, I've thrown a lot of stuff away. I get done and I look at it and go, nah. Because I love it. Well, I hate it. It's my art. So if I don't like it, I'm chucking it. And I know that she's actually gone a couple of times and gotten stuff out of the trash, and I made a pile of stuff. I'm done with this. And I throw it out, and find out she rooted around it, and there it is. You're giving it to one of the kids or something. And the other thing is when you create is share. Sharing's important. And, if you make strings of popcorn and cranberries and little creative strings of garland for your Christmas tree, that's a big deal. So when your friends come over, you say, look what I did. And you know what? 99% of the people are going to appreciate it because it's like, hey, that's pretty cool. Or I remember doing that when I was a little kid. So there's so much you can do that doesn't have to be this. Yeah, that's art. That's really hard to do. That's why I quit doing it. It's hard to do. And I got to the point where it's like, I can do it. I'm pretty good at it considering I'm a novice. This is like the third thing I ever made. This is like the second thing I ever made. And it's hard. Trust me, if you ever try to throw these things, it ain't that easy. But it was so much work and it was so stressful. And even though I was fun, I would disappear in it for hours trying to create things. And then after a while, I'm like, it's not feeding my soul. I got to do things that feed my soul.
I think that's a really important statement. Things, you can get into them, like you said, but if it's causing you stress, the whole thing that Mary and I hear over and over and over again from people is something you said is art gives me peace. It gives me a calmness. People talk about their symptoms kind of melt away and they just feel like in the zone. And sometimes their care partners have to like yank them out to eat. Go, come on, it's dinner time. Yeah. Because you
just get a job. I over the last few years, some people have seen you should be selling this. Mm-hmm. I said, well, then it's a job. I don't need a job. I don't want to sell stuff. So what I do is when somebody really likes something I made, I give it to them.
Yeah.
And then I take a picture of them accepting it. So I got dozens of pictures of different people I've given my art to because. Then when I share a little bit of me and there's a little bit of Wally hanging on their wall in their house or whatever, and they're happy and I'm happy and I don't have a job. So if I don't feel like going out and making something, I don't have to do it. And even going to a yard sale and finding a little bookcase or something and painting it white and then painting flowers on it or painting little colored squares on it or something like that. That's art.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it allows you to get out of the self and into the world. It allows me, when I'm talking about the self, I'm talking about the self-pity, the self-concern, the worries. And it allows a freedom for me I think for most, to just kind of float above all that and create and have fun. And when you're done, if you don't like it, throw in a garbage bag and chuck it out. Nobody says you got to keep it. The fun of art's the creation. Once I'm done with it, I could care less. I don't, if somebody wants it, take it. My joy was in creating. My joy isn't in keeping.
Well, one of the, I think, obstacles for many is that they don't think that they're able to, that they're good enough, and the ego gets in the way. And so you mentioned a lot of alternatives that they could try, but I guess I would just like to bring up the doodling again, because that's freehand. There's no wrong, there's no right with that. It's funny because you mentioned, Wally, how it helped you concentrate. Mary, you said the same thing. Me too. I've stopped doodling. I used to do it all the time in high school and college and stuff, and in meetings when I was younger. And now I'm 65 and I don't do that anymore. But I found great comfort in that, and I found a raised awareness or ability to kind of take in my surroundings as well. If it was learning or if it was like listening to music, might get you in a different mood or change the mood that you're in terms of creating and stuff too. So, there's all different forms. We're kind of talking about physical creation, but there's also, singing and writing, and it's endless. You mentioned cooking and gardening. There's a lot of things we don't totally look at the beauty. And to me, art's about beauty and expression. And there isn't any right or wrong. Maybe it's going to go out, here in Minnesota, where fall's going to hit one of these days. I don't know. It's still pretty nice here, but it might be going outside and just picking up leaves and making a collage or something out of different colors. We had Dale Lattimore on with us, and Mary and I were just like, she can turn anything into art. I mean, it was just amazing, or Gail Gregory over in the UK, where she'd see a tuft of grass on a sidewalk, and then she would draw, and all of a sudden that tuft of grass was somebody's hair, it's endless. Possibilities are endless. So I think one of the things that I would really like to encourage people is to get creative. I think we've stifled creativity, and creativity expands abilities. And I think that that's just so beautiful.
The biggest enemy to art, telling, there's very little in here or on TV that enriches your life and builds your soul. There's very little. There's some, if you go look really hard, but very, very little. Who cares what somebody posted on Facebook? The difference you got to make is in your life and in your heart and how you radiate out towards others. It starts with you. It's like change starts with you. And, and the best thing you could be on people to you is be light and to be peace and be love. And people look at you and think, how can you be diagnosed with this and feel the way you do? Well, through art, through faith, through meditation, through self-actualization and examining what am I doing. I am addicted to YouTube. I love getting on YouTube, and I watch shows about, pulling cars out of ditches. There's one where this guy mows lawns for people for free. And so he sets up a camera and he knocks on the door, it's a little lady, I can't mow anymore. My grass is so high and I need the city's yelling. I'll do it for you for nothing. And he goes out and he mows the lawn. It's like 35 minutes long. I found myself there. Watch the whole show. Oh, he cut that grass over there and he trimmed that edge. I don't know if I would have done it that way. And I'm watching him, and I'm thinking, I got done. I thought, what am I doing? I don't have that much life left to spend watching somebody mow the grass, but I'm doing it. I'm like, holy cow! How stupid can you get? My wife's over there going, I told you this is dumb. Well, yeah, but when I was in the, but I mean, it sucks you in. It's a soul sucker.
But on the other hand, it's about kindness, helping somebody out.
I enjoyed that. Her expression and everything was neat. It was a really good idea. And I mean, again, if you can't do art, do you have a neighbor that needs their grass mowed or their flowers cut? I mean, do you?
Yeah.
There's an art There's the art of love.
Mhm.
There's all kinds of love. You have and what I think is in Greek, you have philos. That's brotherly love. I love Lori. She loves me. Not in an eros way, which is erotic love. I mean, it's just we love each other, right? There's love for each other because you learn. That's love. And then there's like agape love, where you give out your love and you expect nothing in return. It's just generous. You're just a person who just gives it out. You want to change things in your life? Practice some agape love. Don't expect anything in return. Just go out and love on people. Do things for people. That's an art in itself. Everything around us is art.
I love that statement, and it's so true. If we look around, we see that nature creates art, etc. And I know that I am feeling very, very certain that people who are listening and watching basically first got the first fundamentals of an art lesson. And thank you, Wally, for that, because that was really great in finding ways to start small and grow big. Also, if you're listening and you're thinking, well, okay, but I have a physical inability to do certain things, or even in later stages, sometimes the ability to have motor skills is in decline. But there's abstract art too, where the other side of it is just a paintbrush in hand and see what happens. And it is amazing what comes out. And even if it's not representational and you can't guess or know what it is, a truck, a person, place, or thing, like you said, just the process, the idea of doing it can be so helpful to the heart and the soul of anyone, including someone living with dementia. And so if that's what you can do, or if you're a caregiver and you're listening and you're thinking, well, the person I'm caring for can't do this, forget the word can't and say, what can they do? And so many times I've put a brush in the hands of someone who was nonverbal, who hardly could move. And yet, for a long period of time, dipping in that paint, painting the water with watercolors, created a beautiful piece of visual imagination for me and for them. So I want to mention that side of it too. But it does bring us peace. If we just give ourselves the time, as you mentioned, to find some space to do that, to love ourselves through creation, our own creation.
One of the things with watercolors I learned, there's different kinds of things to do it. One of the things you can do is you make like a compass or whatever, a lid, and you make a circle. And then you take your paintbrush and put water on, not too much, and you got to use watercolor paper, by the way, not anything else, or it won't work. But you just fill the circle up with water and let it sit for a minute. And then you take your paintbrush and you don't paint the circle. You just go in and you take a little bit of orange on your brush and you drop it in a corner. Go to another corner, you drop it in yellow, and you drop purple. And then you wait, and those colors will just creep across the page and form these beautiful murals of colors and wonder. And it's fun to see, like, you can take and try to make, different colors of orange, a little orange, a little yellow, orange, a little more yellow, and then another yellow, and drop them in and let the colors blend. And that doesn't take a whole lot of skill to take a lid, draw a circle on a piece of watercolor paper, paint water on it, just water, and then just drop color in different spots. Watch how far it goes and let it travel. And it travels for a long way sometimes. It's kind of incredible. You can drop in light colors that you diluted with water, or colors that you basically almost took right out of the paint tube.
Yeah, and just the physicality of repeating movement with your hand, with your eyes, is a meditative moment.
And watching the colors move and blend, it's just kind of, you can set it aside and come back in an hour after it's dried and think, that's interesting. I had no idea it was going to look like that. So that's fun, and that's art.
Well, one of the things that we've heard from people, that we've interviewed over time here is how they adapt as their symptoms change. So like Toby Hayworth He has always had a studio, and he really did a lot with oils. But with his tremors, that was getting too difficult. So he, puts his paint, on the canvas, and he takes a plastic grocery bag and he just smears it around. And it's just amazing, the textures, the colors. You were talking about doing the abstract art, Mary. you know yeah, you might not be able to tell what it is, but you'll feel an emotion from it.
Mhm.
So you'll be able to tell from brush strokes if they're happy or sad or frustrated. And it's amazing when you just sit still and take time to just focus on the piece versus focusing on everything going on all around. And the discussions that you'll have, we've had discussions many times where it's like, well, I see this and I see that, and I say, well, and now all of a sudden you're seeing what other people see from different angles in a piece that you didn't see prior. So
Like my skull turtle.
yeah, your skull turtle, yeah. So it's very interesting. I do want to mention a couple of our partners. Dementia Action Alliance, they have a Facebook page that you can check out. People are encouraged to go ahead and post their art there. We also work with Forget Me Not, which is a Facebook page created by Harry Urban, who's been living with dementia for 20 years now. And they're just wonderful to work with. And then Twiddle. Twiddle is actually a sensory aid company, and they've created these muffs to help people reduce tension. Works great, especially around sundowning. But I tie that in because art is very sensory in many different ways. It could be music, it could be photography, it could be taste with cooking, it could be physical with your hands. I mean, there's all different types of sensory things. But what art does is calm you down. And that's what the Twiddle products do as well with that. And so I think it's just getting people to expand and think bigger and not be afraid to express themselves, but to be proud that they're a creative being and know that there are many of us out there that appreciate, other people's artwork. And we love it when people share their artwork with us. So, Mary, do you want to kind of tell people how they can join us if they're interested?
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. So if you're watching and you want to be a part of this show, and you're living with dementia, and you're creating art of any type, as we've just explained, so many different forms, please contact us, and we'd love to talk to you and see, what you do, how the art helps you, as well as those around you, because you can collaborate with your family and your children in your family and your care partner. Please, contact us, because we love to talk to people who have experienced this, how art is magic, and how by listening to other people talk about it, I believe it encourages others to say, I can do this, I can try this. So please contact us through the website and through the program itself. We'd love to talk with you.
Great. Thanks, Mary. Wally, any last things that you want to share with our audience?
Every day is a choice. You choose your own day. Are you going to wake up with goals? Are you going to wake up with happiness, joy? Yeah, I know it's tough sometimes. Are you going to wake up with bitterness and anger? Are you going to spend your day watching television shows that make you upset, like the news? Or are you going to spend the day perhaps out in the garden picking up some flowers and making an arrangement? All these are choices that you make. They have a profound effect on how your day goes and how your heart feels in your life. So think carefully, because you only have so many days left, and don't waste them. Get out, find things that you like to do, love on each other, be at peace.
Wise words, Wally. Thank you so much for sharing your art with us and your philosophy of living life. I think that that's really important. I also appreciate you talked about your journey and how, you kind of started out from the doctor with a death sentence, and you just said, I'm not going to accept that. And art has really enhanced your life, I think, in many ways, and it's enhanced ours as well. So art is much bigger than ourselves, and I think that's something we have to learn more. Just like dementia, in my opinion, is not a disease of one. It's and people will say it's a disease of a family, and it's like, no, it's a disease of society, and together we can be better. And art is a powerful, powerful tool that I wish they would start doing some social prescriptions for, instead of just pushing a damn pill all the time at us that, has side effects. This has no side effects, and the options are limitless, and the benefits are enormous. I've not heard from one person who's tried art that, felt like it was a deficit to them. They learned something, and maybe like you, maybe pottery wasn't their thing, but then they found something else because they're around other creative people, and they open that door to expand what they're able to do. And to me, that's just extremely important. So again, Wally, thank you. Mary, any last words you want to pop in with?
I just want to say that these lessons that you're speaking of, in general, for life lessons, are life lessons for all of us, no matter where we are, no matter where we are in our lives. And as I always say it, because it's always true, I'm always learning from all of the artists that come on. I'm learning about myself. I'm learning about the world. I'm learning the power of art over and over and over, even though I believe in it. And so today you've given us so many wonderful things to think about in terms of life and how to live it, even living when one is living with dementia. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Until next time, again, you know how to get a hold of us. We'll have all our contact information in the show notes. But again, on the screen here, you can go to alzheimersspeaks.com, go to our free educational resources where you'll find all kinds of things, including dementia in the arts. Bye now.
Bye-bye.